Washington's history has been defined by how it manages water. Visionary infrastructure, forward-thinking laws, and cooperation have made Washington's farmland some of the best in the world. The roots of water management in Washington trace back to a time when water use was largely unregulated and based on informal claims. In the late 1800s, settlers in the Wenatchee Valley began diverting river water through ditches and canals, transforming arid land into orchards. By the early 1900s, canal companies expanded irrigation across thousands of acres, and mid-century investments modernized those systems with pipelines and improved efficiencies. Today, irrigation in the valley is managed through a mix of public and private entities, including irrigation districts and the Chelan County PUD, which works to balance agriculture, residential, and ecological water needs. The region's long-standing investment in irrigation has enabled it to remain one of the nation's premier fruit-producing areas. Similar efforts unfolded across central Washington, connecting local canal systems with large federally backed irrigation networks. One of the state's most monumental is the Columbia Basin Project. The Columbia Basin Project, authorized in 1943, diverts water from the Columbia River through a vast canal network that irrigates over 670,000 acres of farmland.
This project is in an area that is really a desert, 10 inches of rainfall or less. So if you went to places in the West where you saw that type of rainfall, you'd see a desert. Well, in our case, we've been able to add the magic ingredient, which is water from the Columbia River. And this is a large river. The Columbia Basin Project uses less than 2% of the flow of the Columbia River, and it's made the landscape bloom. And so with the very fertile soils that were available, with the water, we've been able to turn the region into an oasis. We grow a lot of crops in the state of Washington that we couldn't grow for the lack of irrigation. And on the Columbia Basin Project, well over 200 crops are produced on an annual basis, some with very large acreages, some with very small acreages. But the ability to have water resources, the soil resources, and the climate resources, the very long days that we have here in the Northern Hemisphere, create a perfect environment for tremendously diverse agricultural production.
Its network includes over 300 miles of major canals, around 2,000 miles of laterals, and 3,500 miles of drains and wasteways. Though massive, the project remains only partially complete. More than 300,000 acres still lie eligible for development.
There's still work to be done, and the folks in the area recognize that water supplies from the Columbia Basin Project are something they can bank on. There's good certainty surrounding them from now on into the future.
Farmers are also adopting advanced technology to use every drop more efficiently.
Over 90% of the farmland in the Columbia Basin Project is irrigated through some sort of advanced irrigation technology. What you see a lot are the center pivots that deliver water. Farmers can be very precise with their water deliveries with that kind of technology.
In south-central Washington, the Yakima Valley stands as one of the state's oldest and most complex irrigation systems. Launched in the early 1900s, the Yakima Project transformed a dry river basin into one of the nation's most productive farming regions. A series of reservoirs high in the Cascades feed hundreds of miles of canals that deliver water across the valley's orchards, hop fields, and vineyards. More than a century later, the project still sustains nearly 500,000 acres of farmland, along with the towns and communities that grew around it. But it also faces new challenges: aging infrastructure, changing snowpack, and growing competition for water between farms, fish, and cities. Today, a broad coalition known as the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan is working to balance those needs to secure the future of water in the valley. Today, Washington continues adapting to climate change, population growth, and conservation needs. Modernization efforts, from investments to collaboration, reflect a legacy of innovation that will guide the future of water in the state.